The crack of a whip has echoed through history as a sound that meant pain, fear, and absolute control. Whether used in slave plantations, military barracks, or prisons, whipping was more than just a punishment. It was a public demonstration of power. While some tools were designed simply to sting, others, like the cat o' nine tails, were created to tear the flesh apart. From ancient times to the modern era, whipping has left countless people with scars on their bodies and memories they could never forget. What is whipping as a punishment? Whipping is a form of corporal punishment in which a person is struck repeatedly with a flexible implement, such as a leather whip, a knotted cord, or a multi-tailed lash. Unlike caning or strapping, which use stiff tools, whipping relies on flexibility and speed to deliver pain. The part used for striking can be a single line, like a bullwhip, or multiple strands, like the cat o' nine tails. A whip can cause deep bruises, bleeding wounds, and, in severe cases, permanent damage to muscles and nerves. Whipping was often chosen when authorities wanted to combine physical pain with humiliation. The loud crack of the whip announced punishment to everyone nearby, making it impossible to ignore. Where did whipping originate? Whipping has been used across cultures for thousands of years. Ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans all practiced flagellation both as punishment and ritual. Roman soldiers were frequently whipped for discipline, while enslaved people were whipped to force obedience. In medieval Europe, whipping was part of criminal sentences and religious penance. Floggings were carried out in public squares to shame the condemned. As European powers expanded, whipping spread to colonies around the world. Enslaved Africans on plantations in the Americas were often whipped as a daily tool of control. Even after slavery ended, whipping continued in prisons, workhouses, and military units. The practice was so widespread that different cultures developed their own special tools and techniques. What types of whips were used? Several types of whips were created specifically for punishment. The cat o' nine tails is perhaps the most infamous. It consisted of a handle with 9 knotted cords attached. Each cord was designed to dig into the skin with every stroke. In the British Navy and Army, the cat was used to enforce discipline, sometimes delivering hundreds of lashes in a single session. Another cruel instrument was the knout, a heavy leather whip used in Russia. The knout could break the skin and even the bones underneath. In other places, simpler whips made from rawhide or rope were used to inflict pain without the same level of damage. No matter the design, each whip was created with one goal: to hurt as much as possible and leave a clear warning to others. How was whipping carried out? Whipping usually followed a formal process. First, the person sentenced was tied to a post, a frame, or a whipping bench. Their back was exposed, and sometimes their shirt was removed to maximize the impact. The person administering the punishment would stand behind or beside the victim, raising the whip and bringing it down with force. Each stroke landed across the shoulders, back, or buttocks. In some cases, the number of lashes was specified by law or a judge. In others, the decision was left to the officer or overseer in charge. Witnesses described the skin splitting open after repeated blows, with blood soaking the ground. The pain was so intense that people often fainted or went into shock. Even after the whipping ended, the wounds could take weeks to heal, and infection was a constant danger. Why was whipping considered effective? Supporters of whipping believed it was an effective deterrent. The combination of severe pain and public humiliation was supposed to discourage both the victim and any onlookers from repeating the offense. In military settings, whipping was used to maintain discipline and authority over large groups of soldiers. On plantations, it enforced the control of enslaved people by creating fear. In prisons, it punished those who broke rules or resisted guards. Authorities argued that whipping was quick and inexpensive compared to long imprisonments. However, this belief ignored the lasting physical and emotional damage inflicted by such punishment. Many who survived severe whippings were left permanently scarred, disabled, or traumatized. How did whipping affect the people who received it? Whipping left deep marks, both visible and invisible. Physically, the lacerations could be life-threatening if too many strokes were given or if infection set in. Scars from whips often remained for life, marking the body as evidence of punishment. Emotionally, whipping created fear, shame, and lasting trauma. Victims often reported nightmares, anxiety, and depression long after the wounds healed. In the case of enslaved people, whipping was not only punishment, but a tool to destroy dignity and enforce submission. Even in military and prison contexts, the psychological impact could be as damaging as the pain itself. These effects are part of why many countries eventually came to see whipping as unacceptable. When did whipping begin to decline? The decline of whipping started gradually as ideas about human rights and dignity gained influence. In Britain, the use of the cat-o'-nine-tails was restricted in the 19th century. The Criminal Justice Act of 1948 finally abolished judicial corporal punishment in England and Wales. In the United States, whipping was banned in most states by the early 20th century, though Delaware kept its whipping post until 1972. In the Russian Empire, the knout remained in use until the late 1800s. Internationally, treaties like the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and the European Convention on Human Rights condemned corporal punishment as cruel and degrading. While whipping persisted longer in some colonies and authoritarian regimes, it eventually lost legal approval in most parts of the world. Does whipping still occur today? Unfortunately, whipping has not vanished everywhere. In some countries, it remains a legal punishment under religious or traditional law. For example, judicial flogging is still practiced in parts of the Middle East and Southeast Asia. In other regions, it is used unofficially by militias, criminal groups, or security forces. Human rights organizations continue to report cases where whipping is used to intimidate or torture prisoners. Even when carried out under the label of discipline, whipping is widely considered a violation of international human rights standards. What can we learn from the history of whipping? Whipping shows how easy it can be for societies to justify cruelty in the name of order. What was once accepted as normal is now recognized as inhumane and degrading. Studying the history of whipping helps us see why punishment must be balanced with respect for human dignity. It also reminds us that fear and pain often fail to create lasting change. True justice and rehabilitation come from understanding, not violence. The whip was a tool meant to break the body and the spirit. Today, as more countries reject corporal punishment, the stories of those who endured whipping remind us how far we have come and how much work remains to protect human rights. What do you think about whipping as a form of punishment? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like to learn more about punishment worldwide and throughout the ages, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos.